So I read the email about our professor being late. Are we all waiting for him to come on to start the discussion?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Hey, baby. Thank you for reading my contributions to Satori. It means a lot to me. Thank you. I like your contributions as well.
Thank you so much.
Noah, I read yours too. Sorry I didn't get back to you. I forgot. Sorry, but I read yours and they were nice.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
They were really informative. I guess all the professors that you cited, um, I looked up the articles and I like the things that you put in there.
Yes, thank you. I worked hard on them. They're very the biggest downside to that type of methodology is one, it's enjoyable for me, and two, it produces good material. But the thing is, it takes a really long time because then you need to read a bunch of articles and cross-reference them, and you don't want to plagiarize, but at the same time, you don't want to quote everything. So it's really difficult, but it's fun.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening,
Hello.
Professor.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Good
Hey.
evening, Professor.
Guys.
I hope you have your affairs in order, sir.
Yeah, thank you guys. I did, yeah. My wife had to stay home with our oldest daughter. She was sick last night and slept out on the couch, and yeah, she's got a pretty bad fever, so she had to stay there, and I had to run traffic duty for my next oldest daughter and her friend from gymnastics. So I'm back now. I'm gonna go inside and probably transfer over to my um, iPad and sorry, my neighbor's playing his band's playing music. So it's so much louder here than at my office. Okay, I'm gonna go inside, transfer to my iPad, try to find a quiet place to talk from, and we'll get rolling. But like while I do that, I'll mute myself. Did everybody get to watch the movie? I mean, there's no point in faking it because you'll want to go back and watch it if you sit in for the whole discussion or watch the video afterwards.
I did, sir.
Yes, I see that.
Yes.
I see that
Yes,
hand.
my family is
Great.
actually watching it again right now as we speak.
Oh, nice, nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh my God, it made me cry too. Yeah.
There's times where the movie makes me cry and it makes me sentimental, and there's times where I every time I watch it I gain a new perspective, something that I didn't see like maybe the first 20 times I didn't watch it. I start to pick up little tidbits of it.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that, especially because I feel like the last time I watched this, I was probably a teenager, and watching it again as an adult, there's so many more things you notice, like historically, as well as an adult, you're like, oh, I didn't catch that when I was younger. Like the innuendos and just he was such he thought so innocently
Yeah.
that when you're an adult you're like, oh man, actually I'm so sorry, Forrest. Like you just feel worse if anything, but at the same time you know that he's like, it's like
Oh
ignorance
yeah.
is bliss,
Your
and
empathy
it's so
grows,
nice.
right? You feel more
Yeah.
empathetic for him.
Well, for me, it was the same. Like I have to agree with my.
So I'm curious because oh yeah. Go ahead.
But because you pay attention to the
Go ahead,
historical
Eddie.
moments as opposed to, it is a love story. It's a very love, for me it is. But then you start paying attention to the historic moments. You start paying attention. Okay, who was president during that time? And it was just interesting right now. I was catching all the presidents. So.
Hey, Professor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think the fundamental theme of the movie, this probably is more of a thematic analysis and not so much historical analysis? Do you think that the fundamental theme of the movie is that the ultimate form of intelligence is good intentions and aligning yourself properly? Because thing is, throughout the whole movie, Forrest was talking about how he was saying, "Oh, I'm stupid," and everyone's calling him stupid, and how he even knows it because remember when he sees his son, he says, "Is he smart?" No, do you see how that shows up over and over and over again? And yet, if you look at Jenny, Jenny is supposed to be smarter than him, right? But she's like into drugs and she's into all this horrible stuff. Whereas Forrest is out living his own life. Even if he makes some mistakes, he's out living his own life. And in that sense, despite how he's supposed to be stupid, I think that shows that he develops wisdom. And that's shown at the end of the movie when he says that despite how people say it's meaningful, life is also arbitrary, and how it's both. That's where his metaphor of a box of chocolates comes in. And that's wisdom, which I think is the highest form of intelligence. And I think that shows that it's better to be smart than to be dumb. But what's better than being smart or dumb is being good, so to speak. And in that sense, he's capable of having a good life. I think that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. And like in another way to put that might be like his value was really shown in emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
I agree.
But
you don't always know
sophisticated
what was going
application.
on, but he was pretty honest and just attacked things straightforward when he did them. Like while everybody else kind of, bullshitted around about
Right.
it and made these bad decisions.
I don't really think equate Forrest as being stupid. I just feel like there's people who are just slow learners. Because he just throughout the movie,
Mm.
it wasn't like he was being. I mean, I know they had when he was taking the test and they had to held him back, but those
Low
tests,
IQ.
yeah, those tests, those things are just not. There goes to show you that they're not even what it is because how in the end he was able to get through like the war. He was able to, just have money and all in the shrimping business. So he definitely, I don't really think of Forrest as being stupid, just maybe slow learner, slow to get things out. But I think that's also because of, he's definitely
Yeah.
curious. If you remember in the beginning, when the feather drops and he picks the feather up and he puts the feather inside the book, and it was Curious George. See, I didn't catch that. Yeah.
Hey, I respect that analysis, and I think there's a degree of truth to it. And I think that he does have some forms of intelligence, and he has also good intentions, which is probably what you need the most. But I do know from my research in psychology, IQ is super important. It's one of the top predictors for job performance. And I understand, like, just because you have low IQ doesn't mean you're
Well,
down.
I don't think he had a low IQ. I think because of the
Below 80,
standards for them back then
But
was
he had an IQ of 70,
which, and the thing is, you can't
right? Is
nowadays.
70
You can't go
or
into
80?
no 75 or something like that.
75.
But
It was
below 80.
75. He was like
Yeah,
right below where like
yeah.
average was.
yeah. The thing is,
Well,
today
yeah,
you
like
can't.
on that scale, they used to rate that at retarded.
Oh yeah, because didn't
Yeah, but
him
he's
that
far
he
from
was
it
supposed to
though.
go
It's just
to
like
like a
I just
special
think
school or whatever.
like those tests. I mean, I don't know. I just think he's far from it. I wouldn't have judged him on that. I mean, I'm not the principal, but if I was the principal, I would have not trying to put that kid at that when he can totally demonstrate he had other strengths.
It just
But
shows how much like we've progressed, and even then we're still a
Mm-hmm.
little bit behind.
well, like, guys, I understand what you're saying, and I understand the morale of the movie. But even today, you can't join the military if you have an IQ under 83 since the 1980s. So IQ is important, and I do think that it actually paradoxically complements the theme of his good intentions and how he applied himself, and he was smart in the sense he was wise.
For me, this movie emphasized a lot of it's the mom emphasizing that it's okay to be different, and or if we were
Mm-hmm.
all the same, then it's this
No
world would
fun.
be
Boring.
boring. So it's okay
Very
to
no
have
fun.
it's
Well, I
okay
like
to
how
be
the
different
professor was
in your
saying that
way
he's
you think and the way you
emotionally
act,
intelligent.
the way you're
Yeah.
raised, but he still showed a love and compassion. He didn't know what was really going on around him. I mean, when
Mm-hmm.
the whole segregation happened at the college, he was like, he didn't know what was going on, but he didn't have to. He had compassion. He had a heart. So
Well,
that's
he
more
didn't see
important.
all the stuff that other people
Hmm?
did see. He
Yeah,
didn't see color. He treated
he
people like people. Like he was a
Right.
good
Like you're
person. And he even
supposed
when he told
to.
Jenny, "I love you," he was like, "I love you, Jenny," and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yeah, you don't want to marry me." And he's like, "Well, I'm not the smartest man, but I do know what love is." You know, he had that emotional intelligence. He
Mm-hmm.
was very
Yeah.
aware, maybe not in detail
Mm-hmm.
the way some people are, but he was present. He had an idea what was going on, and just like Professor said, that he just said it
Mm-hmm.
like it was.
Yeah.
I have to pee. I want to
He seemed to
run.
read people's intentions pretty well.
Well, I think that it goes to that helped by his mom having a boarding house, and that just brought in all types of character for him to, you learn
Mm-hmm.
from those people from all, different races, different people coming from backgrounds. That's how he met Elvis. Started teaching Elvis to dance.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
now that we're on the topic of people, there are so many political, historical people in this
Mhm.
movie, and there was
Who's
some that I
talking?
didn't even catch before that I was like, wow, I didn't realize. Completely forgot he had met 3 presidents. For some reason, I thought it was
Mhm.
2, and we just all sat here and counted like, oh, it was Nixon. I think was the 3rd one.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really interesting, and just
Oh, and he started.
all the
Remember,
interactions he had were so weird. Oh no, they were just weird interactions. Like he always did something super funny, and I just thought it was cute.
yeah, I thought him teaching Elvis how to do his shake, his dance. I thought that was pretty cool.
I
Sir.
think it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick, sir, step bro, you selected this movie, I assume, because of its relation to historical events. What in particular would you like us to focus on? Like in Vietnam, it did touch upon it and how he did it in his own strange way. He detailed the Vietnam War, like, oh, there's always somewhere to go, or we're looking for someone named Charlie constantly, and like you get like and all this other stuff. What in particular did you want us to extract from that? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did they touch about the civil rights movement? No,
Yeah.
right?
Just
Yes,
a little
they
bit.
did a
but-
little bit in the 60s when his college, they fought
Mhm.
for Alabama State to include everyone to go there, and they were really
Mhm.
upset about it. And they show the black and white footage of Forrest. He's like, oh, you dropped your book, and everybody's looking at him like, what are you doing? What the hell is wrong with you? But that was like when I said he didn't see color, he just saw people. So
Mhm.
he got up and he did what he believed was the right thing. So yeah, that was I believe that was part of all that.
Yeah,
civil
that
rights.
was one. And then he broke up the Black Panther Party because of Jenny.
Yeah, I know.
She
We're
was
sitting
with
there, we're
yeah.
like, oh, it's always
He was
'cause
like,
of
I'm
Danny."
sorry I broke up your little party.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I broke up your. I'm sorry I had a fight at your Black Panther party.
Yeah, exactly. That's
It's so
it.
great. My goodness.
And I think what's really interesting about the historical timeline is it's
Oh, yeah.
also like it being in his perspective. It just, like I said, you just see all of it's like a beautiful ignorance, and you're like, oh man, like if only it really was that simple. You know, he talks about these
Yeah.
historical events like they're so to dance.
Actually,
Oh my Vietnam, you know, and the president and the thing you thought to I got so really cool to see it in his perspective, like the way that we wouldn't see it. You know, I feel like we overcomplicate. Like, hey, maybe we should slow down a bit and enjoy it and not overthink things.
it's amazing that the movie actually goes basically, from all the way from Elvis to the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, which is
Yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting.
Did Jenny die from AIDS?
On at the end.
Yes, she
Yeah.
did. Yes, she
Yeah.
did.
And it's not really talked about like directly in the movie, because in the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, people didn't even have a name
My
for it. They
family's
didn't even know what
listening,
it
and
was.
they're actually they just looked it up while we're talking about this, and they said according to the internet, she died from hepatitis C, or that's what they
Oh.
called it back then, because AIDS wasn't the official name
yeah.
in the 80s. Oh wait, what?
It was still like 85
Oh no,
or
they
something.
knew what AIDS was. She
Mhm.
had an unknown disease, and it wasn't named until the 80s, and it ended up being hepatitis C. I'm sorry, my very smart niece over here is Googling things because she's listening to us, so she wants to make sure we're
Hepatitis C. Jenny said she had
right.
HIV.
Yeah.
I thought she had HIV.
She had
'Cause
HIV. She had said it, and all that drug she was doing and stuff. I can
Yeah, all
imagine
the
she probably
drugs and
had
I didn't think
hepatitis
she
too.
said it, but I thought
She
she.
said unknown virus.
Yeah,
That was
Right.
like unless I'm remembering wrong. She said it was a virus and that they don't know what it is.
yeah, I mean,
Yep,
yeah, but like
but
based on
hepatitis C is different or whatever.
Hmm? Say that again.
think it's
Whoever
done.
talked.
No, I think HIV is a virus. I don't know that hepatitis C is a. I'm not 100% sure if it's a virus.
Bro,
No,
when
I
Jen
agree.
A died. Oh, can y'all hear me? Ooh.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're
Okay.
unmuted.
Hepatitis C is
Yeah,
not a
Yeah, guys,
virus.
mute if you're not talking.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk. I wanted to talk about like Gen A because like okay, the first time I heard about this movie, I was in like fourth grade, and my teacher like she was like a really big hater, but that was the only movie she liked, and she would always quote it, especially that one like box of chocolate. It's like literally ingrained in my mind every time I think about her. And then my tenth grade teacher
Yeah.
and then my 10th grade teacher last year on the first day of school, she was like, my name is Jenny Agnew, but don't call me Jenny like Forrest Gump. And so obviously that's what we're going to call her because she told us not to on the first day we met her. So that was like her new name, like Jenny. And the whole movie, that's what I was thinking about, like my teacher. Like,
So, what do you guys think that Forrest Gump was named after his great 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 grandfather who was started the Klan?
Right.
What do you guys think about that?
now you're bringing up
Yeah,
the
I saw that and I was so
problematicness.
surprised. I was like, oh, I don't remember that part. Like I said, it's
I
the parts that
know.
you look over and you're like, oh, that's not good. And then you kind of have to keep in
I
mind,
don't
like
know if
he
it's.
did
I
grow up
can't
in
know if it's a.
Alabama.
I don't think it's.
That's
Yeah.
a southern state. They're very they're known to be, very racially segregated even back then, and there was just a lot going on. And then mind you, he grew up in, was it the 50s? And so there was still a lot going on back then. And I don't know if it's correct, but he actually looked like he lived in like a plantation type home,
He
like
did.
a very, yeah. So I
It
was like,
probably
oh
was. It
well.
was like one, and that he was left down to his family, and then his mom decided to, because he didn't have a father to make to make money and stuff, to have it as a boarding house.
Yeah. So, but I think the biggest thing for me was I was like, oh, it takes place in Alabama. And then when they talked about who he was named after, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But it was still surprising. Like I just did not remember that.
I think that an interesting thing about Forrest being the descendant of a Klans member is that it reinforces the idea that you really pick your own destiny. That Forrest Gump could be from white supremacists and he could be a white supremacist, but he isn't. He can make his own choices.
Well, so. What do you guys think? Since you said that, I'm not sure who's talking. What do you guys also think of the feather represents throughout the movie?
I think that the feather represents Forrest. Like Forrest doesn't really have these goals to be a civil rights activist or to speak out about the Vietnam War and how messed up it was. He is just a feather on the wind. He didn't pick up the woman's book because he wanted to be a hero. He picked it up because he thought it was the right thing to do at the time.
Oh, okay.
I think
Noah, what do
maybe
you think?
I
Sorry,
think
I was reading the comment of, did you guys know they hired tourists?
I think that the feather because remember how at the end of the movie he said that he says my life is meaningful but it's also arbitrary. I think the feather represents the feather in the wind, the randomness of it, and how it was at the beginning of it and like things happen.
Yeah, that's about to say. I was gonna say the feather is a metaphor for randomness and like of life and the destiny of life.
Yeah, and I think exactly, and you think you can also reconcile that with how his father, his great grandpa or something, was a KKK member, and how he experiences history through the lens of assassinations. How he didn't really understand what was going on, but he could still live properly and meaningfully in the midst of it. So I thought, do you see? And how he also lived much more intelligently. Like when all of his friends, like the lieutenant or his Jenny, whenever they happened, they would just drink alcohol or do drugs or be like a prostitute of sorts. Whereas he would go on a run and he would notice the beauty in nature, like how he said the lake was like two skies, or how he said that the shimmering sun on the ocean, how he worshiped the right things. So I think the fluttering feather is the arbitrariness of life. And I think yeah. So I appreciate your analysis.
I agree. The randomness of life, and I also think and then you remember what I was told in the beginning, how he puts the feather inside the Curious George book, and it's like it all ties in from the beginning all the way to the end, right? And what does Curious George do in any Curious George book? He's almost kind of like Forrest. very similar. So.
I think, the feather can also look like, because it falls to him.
Mhm.
It, it's partially because he's waiting. He's like present. He's not like in a hurry. He's patient. He's like,
Mhm.
because he just is approaching things very simply and very straightforward manner. He's
Mhm.
present where he is, but that's like why that feather kind of lands and opens, and it's like because he's very thoughtful, like throughout the
Mhm.
movie, even though he's very, uh, dull in some other ways or dense. And that's, when we were talking about like intelligence, yeah, the IQ totally matters on all these different levels and
It
statistics.
does, but it's not the only
Yeah,
thing.
Mhm.
but the IQ test is also like biased towards Europeans and towards a certain way of thinking and in a handful of select categories. But the ones that it measures fairly well. But yeah, it's not the only one by any means. There's
Absolutely,
like
yes,
5 different types of intelligence, and
Mhm.
emotional intelligence is one of them. And I think it's the most important one. And I think
Mhm.
that's why he succeeds in what he kind of puts his hand to. Uh, I loved when he's like, "Have you found Jesus yet, Trump?" And he's like, "I know I should be looking for him." It's just, it's
yeah.
it's
And
it's
Professor,
great.
yeah, you remember that scene? It actually reveals to me that, especially because like I read a lot about psychology of religion, that the lieutenant was sort of looking for a reason to spite doing the right thing. No, you get like he was trying to spite like a sense of right and wrong, and whereas Gump was like, like he wasn't even thinking in the same realm. He was just focused on like here and the now and being straightforward. So I thought that was
Yeah,
you
exactly.
didn't even yeah. If someone said that to me, I'd be like you get like you would I would either disengage or I'd try not to be engaged that emotional turmoil because you can't there's no proper way to respond to that. Not if you really want to talk to somebody. But Gump said, I don't know, we're supposed to be looking for him. And I think that shows his aim. His aim wasn't to find Jesus, depending on how you define Jesus, whereas the lieutenant was looking for a reason to spite existence, so to speak.
Yeah, I love it. He showed his butt all like, okay, you want to see it? The president, you see him reasoning it out. Okay, it just kind of, the president's just like, God damn, son, like what? Like just walking away, like, oh, woof. And I
Professor.
love that, the Lieutenant Dan just was like, they gave you the Medal of Honor. You make an ass out of yourself in front of the whole country. He's just like, what? It's great. It's great.
Yeah, that's funny.
Professor,
Mm. Yeah.
it's Eddie. For me, the feather represented something else.
What was that?
What is
Uh,
that?
for me, it represented purity, like innocence in a way,
Mhm.
and the the boy having his son also represented that, like, you know, innocence, and he had a complete circle his whole life, and that was going to be his life now, his boy. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Can you
oh,
imagine also like being a millionaire, billionaire, and just living in the same
By
old house?
yourself,
Because it's not,
exactly.
yeah. Well, and it's not like it's a bad house, like it's a plantation. That's why the KKK, that's why Alabama, right? It's a plantation that they live on. Jenny's family
Yeah.
lives on some, like, it looks like it was probably a slave quarters on somebody else's plantation. Um, and yeah, like but he didn't care. He liked where he was. He didn't want more. He was just very simple and very plain. And didn't like didn't really care that he got the Medal of Honor or uh, you know,
I
the
really like the
lots of
contrast
money.
between him and Lieutenant Dan, because they were so opposite, and Lieutenant Dan was so stuck on, you like ruined my fate, this was my destiny, I was supposed to
I
die.
know.
And Forrest is like, but no, like he was just going with it, like you guys were saying, like a feather flowing in the wind. And Lieutenant Dan was more like this like set solid rock. And I think that there was so much character development for Lieutenant Dan because of Forrest Gump, and that's something that nobody probably would have anticipated from Forrest. But you see Lieutenant Dan at the end and you're like, wow, like there was so much character development there just from knowing and
Yeah.
having Forrest in his life.
Yeah, and I appreciate how when Lieutenant Dan was like yelling at Gump in the hospital, and he was
Yeah.
saying like, yeah, no, he was saying that, and I was thinking, because if I was Gump, I'd be scared. Like I'd be like, is he gonna choke me to death, or like? But the thing is, he what he told him is like, oh, you're Lieutenant Dan to me. Like when he was saying like, oh, I'm ruined, like I'm supposed to die out there. He says, oh, you're still Lieutenant Dan to me, and he said it in a way that
Yeah, his identity didn't change. It was his identity stayed. Yeah.
no. And the thing
Mhm.
is, like he said, I think the paradox is that when he called him Lieutenant Dan, I think he still says you still have to carry that honor with you, that honor to act as though you're a lieutenant, like the honor you thought you're gonna have in battle, you still carry that with you. And I thought he said it in such a simple way, and maybe he could have been a little more sophisticated, but the way he did it was brilliant in my opinion.
Okay, I have another question for you guys. What do you feel that was most important to Forrest Gump? And it's important to all of us as an individual. So what do you think that one thing is that was important to Forrest Gump? I just want to get you guys' opinions, no right or
That's a
wrong
good
answer.
question.
Yeah, what
I think acceptance.
okay. Francis?
Yeah, acceptance for me.
Okay.
Love.
Love, okay. Noah?
I think
it was family. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you probably meant the other Noah.
Don't matter. I just
You need
want
to come up
everybody to.
with like a code name. It's either Professor Noah 1
Oh, my
and then
bad.
Noah
Well,
Noah
I
2.
would have said professor, so I meant Noah, the kid. I mean the guy. Sorry.
no,
Not
I
a
know.
kid. You know what I mean. You
Yeah,
look young.
I get. I know. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. The thing is, I think it's very tricky, and I think all your guys' answers are correct to some degree. But I think, because the most famous line from Forrest Gump, other than like Bubble Gump Shrimp or something like that, is "Life is a box of chocolates." And I think what he means is that you need to work with what you have and value the right things and have an ideal you sacrifice for and you stick to. And I think you can see that when he was in battle, for example, and he was literally being bombed at, he still saved his friends. And I thought, man, like that's so, I don't know, it's so moving, because like I could, if someone was in battle, I would completely respect if they just ran away. I mean, I ideally wouldn't, but I would completely respect it. But he said, no, I'm going to save them, even when my captain told me to just run away and that the bombings were coming. He still decided to save his friends. And no, so I think all your answers are correct, but I think it's having an ideal and moving towards it and valuing the right things. And
okay,
yeah,
that sounds good. Maya, what do you
And,
think?
excuse me, can I
Maya,
say
what do you
something,
think?
please?
Oh, go ahead.
The scene that really touched me was when he carried his friend, and he was saying that he didn't want to go to hell. You know,
Okay, so
I was
Maya,
really
what do you
touched by
think?
that.
I also kind of agree with what everyone's saying, like the appreciation of life. And like Noah was saying, one of the strongest lines is when he talks about, life is like a box of chocolate and you never know what you're gonna get. And so I thought that's like, that's so deep if you think about it. And it's just, he could have been a completely different person. I mean, even in the beginning, we saw how like he got bullied, and like he could have just turned into some terrible person who just did the same thing that happened to him. And so I think that's so amazing, like who he turned into. And it's just like I think he really has a strong appreciation for life and kind of changing his own route.
Hey Maya, Frederick, I read a lot of philosophy. Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher physician, when he talked about the origins of nihilism in his book Will to Power, and he said that the key part of nihilism is not that life is meaningless, but it's that a value system you have, it can collapse. And one of his most famous lines is, such distress permits a variety of interpretations. And he talks about how pain, you can interpret pain differently. Like you said, if you're being bullied, you could think, oh, I'm going to bully them back, or oh, I'm going to learn how to fight, or I can learn. He could bully his girlfriend. I mean, like, there's so many things he could have done, or he could have started drinking, but no, he decided, I'm going to run. I'm going to treat Jenny well. No, do you see? So I completely agree with that on multiple levels of analysis.
Just to piggyback off of the both of you, what I like is that in touching up on the box of chocolates and like not knowing what you're going to get, that's the same in life.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
I can. There's a lot of
Yeah.
noise.
Somebody got noises on. So I think the
Somebody
most
got a mute.
I think the most important to everyone and to Forrest was his home. If you look throughout every incident throughout the movie, he always goes back home. So I think it is home. He,
yeah,
that's where he felt safe. When you're at home, you kind of like feel safe, right?
I think I'm gonna say values.
Yeah, his values too, but
like his personal values and morals. Like he always had his own sense of what was right, and he never ever lost sight of that. Even when sometimes it maybe wasn't the best choice, he was always trying to save Jenny, but like he still did anything that he thought was right. So I think that a big theme in the story is like personal values, you know, because although
he
Forrest
brought
is
Jenny
different,
back home too. He brought Jenny home because he felt safe there. He raised his kids there. He, you know, that's where he grew up with. And if you just watch the movie again, you'll notice that that's like a recurring theme with Forrest, him returning back home.
I think Michelle, I think that's a good interpretation. Never thought about it before, but I think it's, and I think that's correct, and you can make a very sophisticated argument for it. But I think maybe you can make the case that when you value the right things, you have a sense of home because you have a sense of where you're going, and you have a sense of.
I agree. Yeah.
No, so maybe you can localize it within the argument that he valued the right things. I think at least.
Yeah. No, I'm totally. That's why I asked the question. I just wanted everyone's opinion. I don't think there's wrong or right answers.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's not like a wrong or right answer to like art. You know, it's not like this is what the movie. You could say this is what the director intended or what the was said here, but it's like a painting. You can't be like, this is what you should feel when you look at it. It's like, well, you're gonna feel what you're gonna feel when you look at it, and it's interesting to hear why everybody. Like what everybody kind of sees driving him, because you know, I mean, in a lot of ways it's just reflections on us, because there's a there, you know, he's a human, there's a lot of things driving him or that could drive him, and so we can see all these different layers that are all definitely true to some degree. I think Taylor in the chat, she said, I think he cared a lot about his family, which wasn't just his mom, it was his friends, his Jenny, etc. And I think that showed a lot about his character. And I agree, because even when he wins the Medal of Honor, he doesn't really care about meeting the president so much. Like it's not he's not really different with him than
he
anybody
also
else.
helps Bubba's family, and he
he made a promise.
And Lieutenant Dan was like, "You're crazy. Why would you do that?" And he made a promise to Bubba and Bubba's family, so he sent them like a whole heap of money. So it like he took care of the people that he loved and valued, and those people happened to be the people who loved him in return, despite other people's opinions on him.
Yeah, I agree. That's why he goes into a shrimping company, right? It's because of a promise to Bubba. And it's actually why he even wins the Medal of Honor, because he goes back to save Bubba, but then inadvertently saves all these other people and gets Bubba last, and Bubba dies. And
I noticed that
tragic.
too. He went to go save Bubba, but yet along the way, he started picking up everybody because, I mean, To me, I don't think he'd
Yeah.
be able to like consciously leave them and then only get Bubba. To him, like his whole army was his family.
Right, but it also
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like he was like chivalrous, right? He was like they said in the movie, a running idiot. They're like, run, and he's like, I just ran, and he's like, why? There was nobody around. Uh-oh, like I ran way faster than everybody else. I can't leave
Mm-hmm.
Bubba. So he goes back to get him and keeps finding more people that need like carrying out, and he carries them to safety and then goes back in after they've ordered the napalm strike to try to get Bubba and runs out like Rambo-esque, right? Like as the napalm's like dropping behind him. Uh it's it's like he wasn't necessarily like thinking even big picture enough to I got to go save everybody, like because he wasn't even gonna run. They're like, run, you idiot! And he's like, ah! so like he's just kind of like simple in what he's thinking about, and his sphere is really tight, right? It's like just a handful of people. I mean, he basically had a cult at one point that wanted to form around him, and he's like, just like, well, I'm just running. I don't know what you guys are doing. It just stops.
I thought it was
What are
funny
we
that
gonna do
because he was
now?
running, everyone thought that he had unlocked some secret like chakra or wisdom that nobody
Yeah,
else knew.
Okay, I
that
have
was
another question.
hmm.
Do you guys think that Forrest and Jenny each represented different versions of America?
Maybe not America, but maybe how to conduct yourself in the world. I actually thought about that too, and how their infatuation with one another. Because Jenny only did it when it was expedient. Because like she did it when she had nowhere else to go when she was dying of AIDS and she needed to give her child to somebody. Whereas Forrest was very loyal and consistent, but also not obsessive to the point where like he was trying to hurt her. Like you get it. Maybe he was a little, maybe like beating people up probably wasn't like ideal, but at the same time like he did it in a sort of strangely restrained fashion. I think it shows that I think Jenny was looking for a life to live, like looking for an exciting thing to do, whereas Forrest was looking for the meaningful and proper thing to do. So I
Right. So
think
don't you think that there's people like us now, like, like I might live the way I live my life completely different from you. Um, but so do you think that they their differences represents like versions of America? Because you know how everyone has their own way of doing life, and hers was she wanted to go out and get something to fulfill her soul, her whole, because of the tragedies that she had
Yeah.
being brought up.
I think what it shows is like
Mm-hmm.
you can like both of them kind of suffered in different ways, but it's what you do with your life after. It didn't have to dictate you. Like with Jenny, she turned to drugs, she turned to all that stuff to fulfill
Mm-hmm.
her. And even though
remember
Forrest was so like such mistreated, like and always told he was stupid, he made something of himself.
yeah
So
remember what
you always have that option.
Yeah, remember what Nietzsche said about nihilism, how such distress permits a variety of interpretations, how you can take a really bad thing and you can interpret it different ways when there's a spectrum of ways you can cope with something. Yeah, so I think Forrest, he took the lessons he learned from his mother and they were probably the only things he truly learned, but at the same time he learned them well and he applied them very, very well. Whereas Jenny was just floating around, going from person
Mm-hmm.
to yeah. I agree with that analysis.
Yeah,
Okay.
so in the chat, people are, they're bringing up the fact that like she was a severely abused, very poor
Mm-hmm.
girl, who came from a like sexually and physically abusive alcoholic father, to the point she had to be taken away by the police
Yeah.
to live with her grandma in a trailer. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty bleak. And like for in the 50s for the police to take you away from your dad, like,
You must have been the tyrant of
hey,
tyrants.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
bad. It's bad. So it's like the kind of trauma that
Mm-hmm.
people experience from like that kind of earlyhood sexual abuse, and it particularly physical and sexual abuse, is it's severe, and it's for life. Like you can heal from it. You can, like, there's paths to like health and recovery from those things, but it's not like you're going to be like a person who didn't have that childhood. It sets your course for life, and like the movie, does a lot of that with like even well, and this would be more along like what you were saying though, in terms of his character and adversity, where the kids chasing him and throwing rocks at him, like, forces him to just like, overcome his disability. After years of like walking with braces, and it wasn't like a miracle. He just like broke over his, he overcame his adversity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, too, I also realized that Jenny, um, throughout her life, her home, her safe place was Forrest. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that wouldn't disappoint her, that she know that she can count on. And I thought that was pretty cool, that we all, with that she has, even though she went through what she went through, she always been able to count on Forrest to take care of him.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't actually like she didn't try to be with him. She did, and
Mhm.
he had like a "oh no, I can't do this" moment,
Mhm.
right? In college. And then she
Mhm.
got kicked out of college, and it's like, damn, man, it was just, life was not nice to her. And
Yeah.
people are saying in the chat here, um, it's like, yeah, you keep repeating bad habits because
Mhm.
um because of that trauma. It just, every relationship you would be in would be traumatic, and that's why people pick abusive people like that are like controlling
Yeah,
their
so she does represent a part of America, and he does
Mhm.
represent another part of America.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
And like the reason that I picked this film was because there were a lot I was thinking about. But like this one, I'm like, it covers so much in American history, not in like a academically historic sense, or even in a hyper accurate sense, the way like 1917 was. But
Mhm.
it's like, that's not really the point of the film. It's the it's and if that was just a super genius doing all those things and having all those moments, the movie, the story, the novel, it wouldn't feel believable, right? It'd feel like, well, that's ridiculous. This somehow feels more believable. It's like, okay, I could see somebody kind of just stumbling into some of those things, and well, some of that seems. This does seem like the guy who would just like start playing ping pong like crazy. Like, yeah, okay, I could see some of this, and like it covers just a ton of epic moments in history, and it goes out of its way to include a lot of events, just
Mhm.
like, oh, and then that guy's brother got, somebody killed him for no, particular reason some years later in a hotel kitchen. And like, oh, and that guy said we should do this, but then somebody killed him too. Like, like
Mhm.
they're including a ton of those just like kind of historic moments. So yeah, you go from like the 40s, like the post-war, up to the like early 80s.
Mhm.
He's got stock in Apple computer, like,
Well,
what I
I
mean? Like,
actually like, since we're talking about all historical things now, I think it's so cool. Like, I thought it was so
mm,
clever how they incorporated Forrest into everything. Like, he was responsible for like
yeah.
Nixon resigning from like the Watergate scandal, and then like
Mhm.
earlier we mentioned about how Elvis, like that's where Elvis got his dance from,
Yeah,
and all the
that's
different
the
reasons. It's
best.
like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, and then this man, he didn't have a photo camera, and he wasn't good at drawing, but he wanted my face on a shirt. And then, oh look, the happy face was born because of Forrest. And oh look, the bumper sticker was
Wait,
born. Like
wasn't that
shit
Walmart?
happens on a
That
bumper
happy face was
sticker.
Walmart, right? That was supposed
No,
to
I
be
think it
Walmart.
was just I thought it was the original Happy Face.
Oh,
Like
Yeah,
I
the
thought it was
that's
like
how
the
I took
Walmart.
it. But
I thought
I just thought it was so clever, whoever wrote it all up, to
oh
think of all
yeah.
these different ways to be like, oh yeah, this was Forrest. You know that was Forrest.
It's
He had
brilliant.
his hand in that too.
It's brilliant in the narrative, and like, yeah, it's just so fun, like how many things they touch on and include, and you get, so like, instead of watching just a Vietnam War movie, it's like, well, you get a good 15-20 minutes of like the Vietnam and like PTSD and like the like whole veteran and post-war experience, right? You get all of that in this movie, plus like a ton of other things, like some gigantic civil rights rally, right? Which also has a little bit of an element of Woodstock there. You get like even flashes to other people, like when it flashes to Jenny at one point in like the late 70s. She's at like, it's like Studio 54 in New York. It's like the epicenter of like the disco movement, and cocaine and pansexual craziness. And it ends drastically when there's a huge AIDS outbreak there before people knew what it was. But it's like, there's a doc, I think, on Netflix, maybe HBO, called 54 or Studio 54 on it. It's like, you get like, and that's, I think, I can't remember who was saying it earlier, is why, we, every time you watch it, you're like, oh, I noticed a whole bunch of other things. Like, I didn't notice that before. There's just so many things that like they layer in there. It just gives you a whole smattering of like, essentially like the baby boomer experience, really, like what they see of the world. And that's why I also kind of think that's how a lot of people understood the world before the war. Like, oh, it was a different time, and like we had these, ancestors that dressed in white sheets to like enforce the law after a giant civil war. Like, I don't know. It was a
Hey,
long
yeah,
time ago.
Sepra. Yeah, I think maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but for the purposes of the history, maybe Gump is what the average person views history and the world around them. Because not a lot of people are political. Like you get like it's a
Oh
civil
yeah,
camera.
yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so maybe like they view the world as like assassination attempt, recession, or like this giant war my son was enlisted in. Like maybe they go through experiencing it like that. And I think maybe it's a good, like, I know that, for example, many times when people actually experience historical events, even if they're like geeks, they don't actually know how it's going to be remembered 30 years from now. So the thing is, maybe Gump is like what it's like to come of age during those time periods in his own strange fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like without any kind of external prep. Most people would be really kind of unaware of like even who, who different people are, kind of the context around them, or like, what the hell's a Black Panther? Like, like they're like really just, most people really don't know. I was on stereo talking about something a week or two ago, and my friend Diego, he's like a sound engineer, and he was over at my office hanging out, and uh, this person I was talking with were like, this is crazy. I cannot believe people, don't understand this or know something like this. And I'm like, dude, listen, most people don't care about any of this stuff, and they know very little about it. Am I right, Diego? And he's like, yeah. It's like,
Hey,
nobody I
Professor.
know cares about it.
Hey,
So
Professor.
that might be accurate.
Yeah, when I
How
was
the average person feels or views or conceives of things.
Yeah, and even me, like I watched the movie first several years ago. Like it was like a long time ago, and I rewatched it today. And when I saw the Black Panther scene when I was younger, I just thought like, oh, she's just hanging out like at a club or something. Like like a very quiet
Oh
club.
yeah.
But when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, he's at a Black Panther meeting. Like, he should not be there.
Yeah.
No, watching today, I'm
Totally.
like if that happened actually in the 60s, probably would have got shot. Like when you guys got in a fight, like they just drew his guns and like there been his gunfire and everyone would have ran, including Jenny. So like I'm like, he should not have been there. And the way he says, "Oh, I'm sorry for disrupting your Black Panther meeting," I was like, "Oh my God, dude! You know how
Oh, I
angry people are?
know.
Yeah, like they're like military."
I don't think he would have gotten shot if he was down for the cause. I mean, he was there and he protected Jenny from an asshole who was part of that. He was
But no one
part
really.
of the party,
But
the crew.
the other Black Panthers just see one of their comrades getting beat up, and also like they're just if you're gonna walk around with guns, you're gonna look for a reason to hurt someone. And like
Yeah.
huh?
No, that's not necessarily true. Like
Yeah.
the Black Panthers, especially like right when that would have been like 1967,
Mm-hmm.
1968, they were just forming and they were a group in out of Oakland because the
Yeah, out
Oakland
of Oakland
police were like,
with like
yeah, they
Sleepy
were like
Newton and
hurting
Forrest.
people, like shooting people. I mean, you think it's bad right now. It was bad in Oakland. So they were just like, we're neighborhood patrol. Arm yourselves. We will shoot the police if they come up and like start harassing anybody. So it was like,
Yes, okay, sorry. I'm not trying to sound like
yeah.
I'm pro anything, but yeah, like it kind of like intimidated police because like when they saw like they weren't the only ones that had firearms, and you just
Mhm.
have these civilians there like watching every little thing you do. It's kind of like
Yeah.
they were kind of intimidated because I feel like they're a force of accountability almost.
Yeah.
Because if you did something that they didn't agree with morally, as it pertains to Black people, they were good. The thing is, they were set to deal with people, but I don't think they ever truly like. Maybe they shot a few people, but I don't think they ever truly like were able to complete what they had in their mission statement.
No, they've done a lot of
Yeah.
actually good stuff for the Black communities.
I know they
Back
did
in
a lot
those
of good
days,
stuff for the Black community, but
yeah,
when you hear about it from like people who aren't really aware of the Black Panthers, they're like, they were walking around with guns. They were gonna hurt the police. They didn't really hurt the police. The police were
they didn't do
just
all
fine.
that. Yeah, they walk
No,
around
yeah.
with guns all day in Texas. Like, what are we doing here?
What
Literally.
winds up happening is like down the road, they're like some of their higher ranking like officers, they're involved in like running drugs, and that's what like
Right.
Oh, I didn't know
really
about
gets
that.
them in trouble. But some
I
of the stuff they do to like one of the, I can't, it's not Huey Newton.
or is it Bobby Seale? Is
It
it
might be Bobby Seale.
Fred Hampton?
He basically gets like the
Is it
FBI like drug him. He goes back to his apartment and they raid it, like secret raid,
I think that's
kill
Fred
everybody
Hampton.
inside.
I
Yeah,
think that's Fred
yeah,
Hampton.
yeah,
Because like
yeah,
there's also like Eldridge Cleaver, but like because the thing is like
yeah.
they did not
It's
have any
Eldridge
security.
Cleaver.
They did not have any background checks. They were just letting anybody and everybody walk up in there. So the amount of people that the FBI sent in there to get them
Yeah.
information, to tell them the addresses that these people were at, it was a matter of time. Like, I mean, background checks aren't the same like you can do now. Like now you can go on the internet, you can find somebody's whole life story. But then it was just like, oh, you're down for the cause? Here's a gun, here's a beret,
Right.
marvelous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it like the government wages an unfair war against the Black Panthers, and yeah, there's criminals involved in their group eventually, and probably some from the start, but they're in the hood, and the reason they're in a hood is because the the system, the government keeps them there, and the police are the strong arm enforcing that, which
Mm-hmm.
are acting with impunity, just shooting people, planting evidence like crazy on people. Uh, and
Yeah, guys.
yeah, and like Angela Davis,
Mm-hmm.
she was like a UCLA professor. She
Mm-hmm.
gets arrested because somebody uses a gun registered in her name in like a bank robbery.
Mm.
Yeah, guys. I just want to make like I didn't mean to sound like really anti Black Panther. I didn't want to come off like that, but I was just pointing out like some of them were criminals and they had like guns. So I thought if they see someone like a Caucasian guy beating up like someone who's part of the organization, I thought it'd be reasonable that there'd be a violent response. So my bad. I didn't want to sound like a virulently anti-Black Panther or anything like that.
No, you're not. I see what you're saying, because in that scene, you know, he was on Jenny and his people, the Black Panther crew. I guess they look at it, you know, there's some people who are just like, well, that's not my business, so I'm not going to get into it. And so
That
then
was
Forrest,
much more common back then
yeah,
too.
and Forrest was just like, okay, all you guys are here, ain't nobody going to do anything. I'm going to do something, because it's not right that any man needs to put his hands on a woman. And so I see what you're saying, Noah. And when it with at least I think I understand, I can comprehend what you
Because
mean about that.
he was Caucasian. He was in a Black
Yeah.
Panther. He started beating someone
Mhm.
up. No, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I'm not trying to be anti-Black Panther, but I just thought if someone I know said I'm going to go do that at a Black Panther meeting, I'll tell them be careful because they have guns, and if you're Caucasian, you start doing that in the middle of the meeting, like you don't. I just thought it'd be reasonable if they violently responded. That's all I
I
was trying
think
to.
that is a reasonable like assumption though. If you go to a party and
Mhm.
get in trouble and you know that these people are like packing, it's not smart to go provoke.
Dude, if you go to a party on the east side, you don't go start like eyeballing people up and pushing them like you do, like
Right.
no, like
Yeah, but
especially
I
in
thought,
some
yeah, you're right
neighborhoods.
though. But you're right, because the Black Panther did not intervene when it came to Jenny and her boyfriend. They didn't intervene. So I thought that was a little bit interesting, because it was was it just like, well, that's his problem,
I
or
think it has
what
to
was
do
it?
with like their moral. I think it has to do with like people and their moral compass. You see this guy, he's hitting a girl, and if somebody else deals with deals with him because he's like physically beating a woman, I'm not gonna step it in and say stop hitting him. Stop hitting him. No, he hits girls. So now, not saying I be like hitting him is gonna fix the problem, but I'm gonna turn
Mhm.
the other way. I'm gonna mind my own business.
But a
Yeah,
lot
Huh.
of
well, and
people
they
on the
don't
street do
necessarily
that.
just start shooting, right? Like
Yeah.
they're like, okay, hold up, like what? Okay, and it's real tense afterwards. But
Yeah.
like, I can't remember what book I read, but when I first started teaching, I taught women in U.S. history for like I don't know 3 or 4 years, and so I was getting more well versed on like feminist literature and history, and um, a lot of women actually like complain that like even in all these social movements, SDS, which the guy mentioned, he was the head of the Berkeley chapter, which is the Students for a Democratic Society, which the FBI paid people to just take classes at college, pretend to be students, and infiltrate these groups and spy on them. And like, there's like, there's just so much kind of history we don't know about with some of this stuff. It's it's a little
Yeah.
overwhelming, and
Like
it makes and there were a good handful of like wealthier New York socialites that were funding or like supporting, mixers for Black Panther people with like wealthier folks that could help them. Most of them being
yeah.
white.
Yeah, I saw that because
Good night, guys.
I watched Black Panther: The Vanguard, and like they were showing that these people with money were funding, and I was like, this is very interesting. Like I watching all of that.
Yeah, it's messed up. It's like, dude, the government should not be doing this. And ironically, this is also when it's like, well, this is like kind of what the Second Amendment is for, when the government's getting out of hand and thinking they could just like whip everybody around. We can arm up and tell them no. Like that is the Second Amendment in probably one of its purest forms. That's not like a militia fighting against the entire government, right? But it's not usually seen or interpreted that way if it's talked about at all ever in history, which clearly it usually isn't. But
I asked my teachers because like I asked them like, how come you guys don't teach us about stuff like communism or like Black Panthers? And like one of my teachers, like at least they were honest with me. They're like, a lot of history books don't teach you that stuff because they don't want you to repeat it. Like my history book for this year for history 11, it doesn't talk about slavery.
What?
Yeah.
Which history book is it?
Oh, let me go get it. It's
Oh, you got to show me. You got to put it on here.
find the name of it. It's
Oh my
Impact
God.
California Social Studies, United States History and Geography. It doesn't talk about slavery. So my teacher had to like find a whole nother way to.
No, this can't be. This is horrible.
That's what my
I
son said
mean,
in high school. He said that they don't even go out over that. He's like, they barely touch. He's in U.S. history as well. He's a junior. He says they barely touch over that.
Hey guys,
Yeah, I'm a junior too.
Yeah, guys, I don't try to take explicit political positions because it's not particularly useful. But I'm going to tell you, as someone who researches economics, you do not have a full history of the United States if you do not understand slavery, because you don't understand how different political narratives emerge. No, so even strictly as an academic, like I try to be like an academic person, you do not understand the history of the country if you do not understand slavery, like because it influenced all of Southern history, even to this day. It influenced the metamorphosis of different political narratives. It caused the Civil War. Like, how can you really learn about the Civil War without learning about slavery? No, do you see?
Yeah, it's
like,
just bad economics. It is. It's like
no, it's like how can you learn about the United States history if you don't learn about like the Constitution? Like you do, like you just like move that from the picture.
Right.
Like it doesn't make any sense to me. And
right.
maybe
And
there's
this is like gotta be like such revisionist history. Like I know it's on the rise. I mean, I write about it or try to talk about it, but Jiminy Crickets, that's like
Professor, one day whenever you
horrific.
have time, can we like have a discussion about what happened during this election? Because I feel like it's been very controversial. It's like one of its kind so far.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been crazy. We totally can. So I've mentioned Stereo, the app I'm on now. A few of you guys are on it. I think Marshawn's on it. I've been having all kinds of talks on that app. So tomorrow I'm talking to like a friend I've made on there, Jose. He's like a comedian now, but he's a vet. He was in Iraq. So I'm gonna interview him about like kind of some of his experience, just in the military on Stereo. Just because I think it's, I always appreciate that in classes when we get those perspectives. It's helpful, and I thought with Veterans Day being today, that'd be cool. We could talk about that, and then he's gonna stay on, and I'm gonna go into like I'm gonna record my uh, World War II like material. Like I'm gonna go over that with a handful of videos, but I'm gonna stay on Stereo while I do it. So I'm gonna do it live, and you guys could hop on there, and we could talk about that, and I could also probably set up a talk about that for this weekend or beginning of next week sometimes, because I've talked a good handful of times on there about it, and it's people want to listen, people want to talk, people got lots of questions, and it's like sometimes we just want to like have a place to be like, this is crazy, right? This is nuts, or like, hey, I'm really excited. Should I be excited? Is there like should I be waiting for the shoe to drop? Like it's been really helpful just to have more space talking to people like that. So I'll think about setting that up maybe this weekend, maybe Sunday, or Friday.
Hey, Professor. I'm gonna thank you for this discussion. It was great. I like the parts about Forrest Gump in particular. I'm about to leave. Can you sometime in the next week or so, whenever you have time, can you make sure you read my Satori contributions, because I worked hard on them.
I emailed you back. Which section is it on? Yeah. Oh, you
Oh,
can
I
just email me.
already
Yeah,
did.
just respond to that with like telling me which section it is in
Oh,
Satori.
I emailed you back. It's general
Okay.
historical. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'll take a look, and yeah, I'll set up a link for talking about kind of the election and kind of poli-sci government stuff where we're at right now, and the media and everything and trends, and then maybe I'm gonna try to schedule some space for Zooms tomorrow, maybe afternoon, and then some for Friday to find space to meet with you guys finally over group projects. So I'll shoot out an email tonight or in the morning with both of those kind of stereo time setup and another um, some links or some time windows for Zoom meetings on this regular thing here, the regular channel, not the class link.
Yes. And for us to take attendance, do you want us to email you, or are you just gonna look at the recording, or like to get credit for
You
this?
beat me to it, Noah. I was about to ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we did that last time. We just emailed.
Yeah,
We need that
just
credit,
shoot me an
Professor.
email. Yeah, just shoot me an email, and I'll include a reminder for that in the email that I send out. I was thinking about just like scanning through participants and writing them down when I was at my office, but not now. Not that I'm here.
I'll shoot you an
Almost
email,
10.
sir. Thank you.
Cool.
Professor
Thanks,
Shepard,
guys. Yeah.
do you enjoy board games?
Oh my. Oh, you see
That's like
my.
all that's in the back.
That's most of our games. Board game shelf.
Wow. Somebody gave me a board game set for Christmas last year, but I kind of got insulted because I'm like, who gives an only child a board game set? Who am I
There's a little cruelty in that. That's
Yeah.
funny. That's funny. But yeah, one of the games I've got over there is Diplomacy. That game I was telling you guys about with World War One, like where you play out World War One. There's 7 countries. So maybe once the semester ends, sometime between now and I don't know the next one, I might set up a game if some of you are into that. You can let me
Next
know.
semester is January 11th. I don't know why they got rid of intercession. That just ruined my whole plan.
Oh, dude, it is a drama. I think it's going to result in like a actual legal battle because the president did it like illegally against the school constitution and against the surveys and against the faculty and against the student body and against the academic senate and against like everything. It's one of many of the kind of saga of recent
Yeah, because
recent
like
day.
like when I asked my teachers, they're like, "Oh well, like they say it's because like not too many kids are doing good with intercession." But when I got here, like 9th grade, they make you make an ed plan, and my ed plan included intercession. So you just canceling that is just gonna ruin my whole feng shui.
This was one of the things we were saying, like, hey, students trying to get ahead and transfer earlier, like this is a big deal to them. But no, we're changing it for some reason. I don't know why, but for some reason we're changing it. Well, guys, I'm gonna go.
Okay,
Thanks for
cool.
hopping on, and I'm so glad we all got to watch Forrest Gump. It was fun. It was really great to talk about it. I might even do a talk sometime later on stereo about Forrest Gump because this was great to talk about it, and I think a whole bunch of other people would want to hop on that discussion. So maybe I'll do that too. I might set up a few different talks, and I'll email you guys some links. All
All
right,
right.
guys. Have
Sounds
a great
good.
night.
All right. Bye.